That's what you do. You buy these clothes that cost money and make a difference in it. But we never do that.
Never complains, gets up, gets on, with a smile on his face.
You just want you to sit in your chair and go hip hip hooray for the Western press and the Western narrative, regurgitating the same old every single day without this. If you haven't seen it before, please watch the first few episodes, the second season, something like that.
We are on the site of the castle.
And it was the first time the Beatles had really stopped being semi-professional almost.
Look at that.
Absolutely fascinating.
I just this all the time. A little picture in the corner, you know, the screen. And you don't see it, you know what I mean, but I do. I think I do anyway. But anyway, I'm here tonight, and I'm going to do a couple of murders. I'll be doing the map as well later on, you know, after the break. We have a little break, don't we? And a 5-minute break, and so I can make myself another cup of tea. Yeah. So we'll be doing that a little bit later on, the map. But it's very important, the map as well. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do a couple of murders that had happened, but very controversial, which is sad in a respect. Sad. And it's what you call British justice, if you like. British justice, if you know what I mean. So I'll be doing that, a couple of them, and the next we'll be doing the map along with my great friend, great artist, and he is a jolly good fellow. If I was posh, I'd be saying, "Oh, okay, he's a jolly good fellow," but that's the great international artist. Proud to say it, actually. International artist, Anthony Brown. But I'm just going to say before I bring them on, hello to these wonderful people here. Myra, all the way from South Africa. Lovely place. Hi, Frank and friends. Hi, Myra. Mi cara Toscana, cara mia. Ciao Franco, hi everyone. Hope you're all well. Says Toscana. Thank you, Toscana. Grazie mille. Yes, Frankie, says Darryl. Ti amo, Frank. That means io ti amo. Io ti amo. That means I love you. Io ti amo. That means, and Darryl said, God bless you. Means I love you, Frank. There'll be a few girls saying the same. Not girls, you know, females. Grown up ones. Even if Frank, you great art warrior, Anthony Brown. Evening, you great art warrior, Anthony Brown. How lovely. How lovely message. How lovely. And Myra says, like and subscribe. Thank you, Myra. Thank you so much. Thank you. And George said, good evening, Frank. And I hate to mention this on History Night, but just in case I forget, sort of brilliant. No, don't be worrying. On Saturday called Donna's. True story of a man who gets Italian nans to cook. Oh, go away. I'll have a look at it. Are you sure it's Donna's or Nonna's? Nonna's. Because Nonna's, I think it's Nonna's, it must be. Because Nonna means grandmother in Italian, and Nonno means granddad. So where are you saying that sort of brilliantly? We called down true story of a man who gets nans to cook. So it's Nana. That'll be Nana's. I'll have a look at that. Thank you, George. Oh, I like things like that, coming up and little surprise, a nice little surprise that. Thank you so much. I'll have a look at that, definitely. Good evening, Sir Carlyle, Sir Brown, and Knight in the LFC chat, says Johan, our friend, all the way from Manchester. And Nana's spell check is annoying me. Yes, it's just I've done it. I sent a friend a message, lovely message, I thought, but it was predictive text, and I can't say it because of the ladies on here. What came out and said, I said sorry, I'd never said that. I said this instead. And Daryl says, "Hi, Johan, mate, you're welcome here." Isn't that lovely? They're all saying now, they're all there. And Barry Aldridge. Evening, Senor Frank and amigos. All the languages are coming in, so we've got Spanish, we've got Italian, we've got Paul with his English. Evening all. Callum. Frankie Lanke Sanke. What's that? Frankie Lanke Sanke. Is that hello in God knows what it means? What language that is? Austin's going to Stratford William Shakespeare Memorial School. Brilliant. But I hope he takes up Shakespeare. I really do, because there's nothing like Shakespeare. Love Shakespeare. Love him. Right, I'm going to bring on this wonderful person. Yes. International artist. My mate. Anthony Brown, and there he is.
Good evening, Frank. Nearly birthday boy.
It's mad, isn't it? Isn't it mad? The way, like this right now, George sets into things. There's a great film I've seen it and called Donna's, and Toscana there says Nonna's. That's nan in Italian. Yes. My late mum used to get all her Italian friends round, and they'd be cooking fresh Italian food and Italian biscuits. I'll have to watch it. So she's going to watch this particular film.
Brilliant.
Like
to you and George on Saturday morning, and George was talking about The Great Escape. I love that film.
Oh, great! Yeah. It's a stalwart film, isn't it? All the actors that we grew up with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the term classic and legend is so overused these days for mediocre stuff.
It is overused to be honest.
A brilliant film, yeah.
And as I said, I've got two murders to do. And do you know what? It's funny this, we start off, and someone comes in, and we start talking about films. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you see how comments lead? to other agendas,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of podcasts, and
Podcast.
and people talking. I love that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I
From
really
the
do.
work of Frank
And
Carlyle.
and, and, and they let on to each other. They let on to each other.
Yeah.
Like Darryl says, Austin's a fantastic artist. That's to you, that.
Ah.
His little boy.
Yeah.
And the Redbird says, "Hi Frank, hi Anthony."
Hi, Redbird. Hi,
And
Darrell.
George said,
Hi, Austin.
"Good, go on. I'm sorry. What was you going to say,
Oh, I'm just saying hi to Darrell and Austin. That's what I've
little
been
Austin?
today, working on Austin stuff. Sitting in the garden, the sunshine, the best light,
Sunshine.
and then guess what? Thunderstorm starts.
I know.
Well, you couldn't write a book.
I had a workman here today, and I had to sit in with him, and I was up early, very early this morning. So I went to bed this afternoon. I said, right, I'll go out. And I was going to go out and sit down by the bin shed.
Yeah.
So I couldn't because it was thunder and lightning. The rain was lashing, really torrential rain. So I never bothered.
Yeah.
I never bothered.
Yeah.
The Anfield Road. Good evening, Frank and Anthony.
Good evening, Anfield. And good evening, George. I saw that little note then.
Paul says, just been watching your Liverpool Unravels outtakes, Frank.
Brilliant.
Do you know
Yeah.
what, though? I said when we were doing this film, and I said, put outtakes on because, we're not all perfect, doing these things. And then, no, someone said, and I said, oh, don't do that, it's unprofessional. I said, no. I said, put them out. We did, and people loved them. Because I'm not saying that I'm vulnerable, but you can't get everything right in the first take. You just can't. So
Well,
anyway, we put them out.
that's the beauty of them because
Yeah,
the films themselves are wonderful, polished, great. And then the outtakes are fantastic. It's that I defy anyone on this planet when that red light is going and you say, okay, count in 2, 3, you're on, whether you're singing a song or presenting, and all of that knowledge. And then you've got so much to contend with, like car goes past and beeps just as you.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Because I had to do it down. It was like that it was. I had to go down. No script, I wasn't reading from a script.
no,
And so I had to memorize what I was talking about. It was about a nurse, one of the greatest nurses,
yeah,
Agnes Jones, right? Who was talking about her.
yeah,
And it was right down like that. And I'll tell you where it was. It was at Pembroke Place. And I was talking. And I had about 4, 5 takes on it. And so on the say like the fifth take,
yeah,
I said, and do you know where coming down to the last couple of sentences?
yeah.
I said, I've got it. To myself, I've got it. And just talking to the camera. And this car went past and went beep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, but it's like the Beatles would record 60 odd takes of a song, and then after that, when they're all burnt out, they go back and choose the second one.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of it is you fired up the first one.
Well,
So
that's it. We are, and that is it. We are fired up and trying to get across what you want to say.
yeah,
But as I said, there's noises and there's.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, shall I start this? Or I'll just say hello to Paul. Says, "Can I in here?" Because he's looking at them outtakes. And Barry says, "You know what Olympic events people from Wigan are best at beginning with the letter T? Tommy, tie, Tommy, tie jump and hurdles." They kick your head in. Greetings, all peace and harmonious vibration, says Paul Milligan. Well, that's a nice God's thing,
That's
that
a
is it?
great one, that.
Isn't that lovely? And
Yeah.
the Anfield Rose with her. The Anfield Rose, saying hello to all the lovely people on here.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to start. I'll have to start. Honestly. Oh, this the Ottoman tea. I've said hello to everyone. The Ottoman, hit the like button, please, guys. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
Ottoman tea. Oh, these names. Anyway, what I'm going to talk about, as I said, these are going to be very controversial and rather sad in its outcome. What it was in August 1951, and it's 20th of August, summer's day, nice and warm, everything. And at number 7 Cranmore Terrace, Tom Rimmer, he walks down to his mother's, goes to his mother's, knocks on the door, couldn't get in. Could not get in. So anyway, he didn't know what to do. So he said, I'll have to break in. I'll have to go. So we went around the back and he broke in around the back because his mother's always in. And he found his mother dead on the floor, and there'd been a frenzied attack on her.
Oh.
And she had a fractured skull, which is, shocking to say the least. Fractured skull, loss of blood, shock, everything. Well, you would,
Yeah.
with this. Anyway, there had been a frenzied attack, as I said, Anthony. Because there was 20 to 30 blows to the head resulted in that attack. 20 to 30 blows to the head. So you can imagine that a hammer was used.
Yeah.
So anyway, a fellow by the name of Detective Inspector Hector Taylor took charge of this place, this investigation. And it went from there, and it went into September. And it stalled because they couldn't find the culprit or culprits. They just couldn't find it. Couldn't find any breakthrough in the investigation. So who they brought in, and you know this fella when you've heard of him and seen, he brought in Chief Inspector Bert Barmer. He brought him in. Now, Bert Barmer, he's been, I'm not saying voted, but he got results, put it this way. He got results. Every investigation he investigated, he got results. But latter day today, he's been known as the most corrupt police officer in the annals of judicial system.
Yeah.
Police work.
Yeah.
Most corrupt. So bear that in mind. So he took charge, And he said, I want results quickly, very quickly. I want results. So he took charge. Now, what Barmer's thinking now is he knows what you call in this, what we call here a grass in jail. So he goes up to this grass and he says, do you know anyone? Now, this fella's in jail. He said, I'm investigating a murder. He said, yeah. He said, do you know anyone who would go to Cranmore Road and murder? Do you know anybody who'd do that? Now, this fella named McLaughlin said, how do I know? I've been in jail. I don't know anyone. Bear that in mind. So Barmer, he said, this must have been planned. This burglary must have been planned. That's what he said. Must have been planned. So he goes back down. He goes back up to McLaughlin, and he said, are you sure you don't know anybody who do a burglary like this? And he went, I don't know, honestly. Then he asked him again, and he said, you do know 2 burglars. You know them. And he said, I don't know it. He said, you do know 2 burglars. And he said, and I want you to admit it now, or we could implicate you in anything we want. So the fella, now he's sitting in jail because he's a thief himself. What he was in jail for, actually, and it was in the same road. This is why he went straight to McLaughlin. He actually burgled this fella, McLaughlin, his auntie's house in the same road that this murder was committed. Right?
Yeah.
So there's Barmer. He's working his head. Now, as he said, I want results. I want results. Quickly. Very quickly. And as I said, he goes back to, he said, you do know 2 burglars. And I want you to admit. I want you to mention their names to me now. Now, there were 2 burglars, and they were from Manchester. And he could never catch them because they were good. In other words, they used to take the Michael out of them. So they used to come down from Manchester, go to wherever they were going to burgle. But they burgled like factories and not houses. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
No houses. So he named them. He named them 2. This McLaughlin lad. He said one name's Burns and the other burglar is named Devlin. He said, I don't know them, honestly. He said, you will know them. You will know them. That's what he said to McLaughlin. Now, don't forget, McLaughlin's in jail. Obviously, he's being threatened. He could be threatened with being implicated in this murder, albeit he was in jail. See what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's you can easily implicate anyone sitting in jail with a crime being committed on the outside. You know that. So McLaughlin said, yeah, I met Burns and Devlin. I met the both of them. He said, he said, I want you to case a job. And I gave the address to them. And the job was at 7 Cranmore Road. 7 Cranmore Road. So what do you think? He's got the information now about these two fellas.
Well, the Ben Bobby's got the information, but it's a bit of gaslighting, isn't it?
Oh, terrible gaslighting, yeah. And untrue. So anyway, he said that Burns and Devlin, he told them this, that there's a widow by the name of Mrs. Rimmer, whose house, there was money in the house. Money in the house. And it'll be an easy target, he said. And this is what he's saying to Barmer, by the way. So he's told these. Now he's implicated in Barmer's scheme. Now don't forget, he didn't know these two lads. And Barmer implicated. And there was a girlfriend named June Barry. She was 20 years of age. Girlfriend of Devlin, who was also drafted into the plan of the robbery. So they went to meet it. Barmer went to meet her. And he said, what happened? And she said, I don't know what you're talking about. Again, threats. Don't forget, this is a murder where you could be hanged. 1955.
Yeah.
So this girl obviously is afraid. She's become afraid now. Because he knew that she was the girlfriend of Devlin.
Yeah.
And she said, oh yeah, they asked me to talk to someone. But I couldn't go. I really couldn't go because I was ill. So, and he said, well, can you give me another name of another person? Because the plan was to get a girl. This is all, it's finally scripted. To get a girl to go to the house, knock on the door. Now, don't forget, back in those days, on a lovely summer's day, summer's evening, put it that way, kids are playing out in the street, as you know. People, it's not like television today and all this high technology. They were out talking. Neighbours were talking to each other, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They weren't sitting in the house. They were outside, talking in the street. So the idea was for this girl to go and knock on the door, give some excuse why she was there, while Burns and Devlin lifted them over the back wall. But it was McLaughlin who said, oh yeah, I gave them a leg up, over the wall, so that they go in, burgle the house, and come back out again. That was the plan. But this girl, this June Barry, she said, I was in hospital, which she was. So she gave them another name. It was the girlfriend of Burns And her name, she was a 17-year-old. She was only a 17-year-old. And believe it or not, she was an illegal immigrant. Illegal immigrant. And she went under the name of Maria Burns. Maria Milne, I'm sorry. And that was Burns' girlfriend. So she went under the name of Maria Milne. Right?
Yeah.
And she was also 17, as I said. But she was a prostitute as well. She was a prostitute. So anyway, this girl was brought in to Burma. Now, don't forget, she's an illegal immigrant. So you can imagine the threats that are going to her. Not only being illegal, but also a murder case.
Yeah.
17-year-old in front of the police, sitting down, being interrogated.
It's the whole legal system is stacked up against.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So anyway, she was being interviewed and she gave way to Barmer. She said she waited for Burns and Devlin at 6 p.m. on the day of the murder. She waited for them. And their job, as I mentioned before, was to go and keep, knock on the door, keep that woman busy. They jumped over the wall. Voila. Right?
Yeah.
All the same. So the rendezvous, we're supposed to meet them. This is her coming out saying this. The rendezvous is going to be at the Rialto Cafe.
Okay.
The Rialto Cafe. And she said, they never showed up. I didn't know what happened. I was sitting there. This is all scripted by Barman himself.
Yeah.
It's all scripted. So obviously she's going to be relieved that this is, this is not her doing, if you know what I mean. This is not going to be her doing. She's not going to be implicated in anything because she wasn't there. But they still needed evidence. And Milne, as I said, whose job was to go to Mrs. Reynolds, didn't go. And she went back to the Rialto. She waited for them. She waited for them at the Rialto. And then they showed up later on. And supposedly have said, where were you? Where were you? You weren't there. And she said, I couldn't make it. This is it. This is what's being said.
This is the script.
Yes. And she said, but when they came in, they were full of blood. They had blood all over them. Think about it. This is what she's saying. They had blood over them. Yeah. And Mel said she overheard Devlin ask Burns, will the old lady live? She's an odd way, will the old... This is in a cafe where someone supposedly have murdered another person. And they're supposed to have said, will the old lady live? Yeah. And Burns said, to hell with the old woman. We'll be out of Liverpool before long and we'll take Maria with us. This is all supposed to be said in the cafe, the Rialto Cafe. Now, could anyone believe that? Could anybody believe that? Because I couldn't. I was sitting on a jury. I wouldn't believe any of that. So anyway, you had the prosecution. Now the prosecution, there was, well, first and foremost, there was the justice. And his name was Justice Fenimore. He was the judge. The prosecution was Mr. Basil Need, King Counsel. The defence was Miss Rose Heilbronn, King's Counsel. And there's another fella there's two barristers. Yeah. And he was Noel Goldie for Baines. So you had Rose Heilbronn. Now, what I've got to mention here before we carry on is that back in the day, you're talking the 50s. You're talking male dominance in law.
Yeah.
So the thing is, they would want to see Rose Heilbronn taken down, because she's a female, Rose Heilbronn. And the prosecution says on the 20th of August, 1951, I'm sorry about the date there, 1951, Cromwell, Tom Rimmer arrives at his mother's home, Alice Rimmer, 54, couldn't get an answer, forced his way in, found his mother badly beaten and dead. And then it went on, what happened to the lady? Right? So now the defense says, hang on a minute, he said, Rose Heilbronn, and the other fella, he said, hang on a minute, hang on a second. And here's what he said. Didn't know this McLaughlin. Both of them didn't know McLaughlin. He didn't know him from Adam. Didn't know him. The pair of them were not seen at the crime scene. Now, don't forget what I said before about kids playing out. Women gossiping. Sorry, ladies, I have to say that. They did gossip, they talked. So no one's seen them. Not seen, enter, nor leave the premises. Right?
Yeah.
No murder weapon was ever found. No murder weapon found. Fingerprints were found. They were found. This is the defense, and even summing up said fingerprints were found, but they weren't of Baines and Devlin. Many witnesses, and I'm talking about a lot of witnesses. Now, don't forget, back in the day, you're talking 1951.
Yeah. Yeah.
The jury will consist of middle-class people. It was very, very rare that working-class people sat on a jury back in the day. Very rare. They all seemed to be middle class. So these witnesses who gave the alibi, one of them, or two of them, was the manager and manageress of a pub. Manager and manageress of a pub. There was also a fellow by the name of Campbell who was sitting in jail for burglary. Was sitting in jail for burglary.
Yeah.
So they brought these this couple in, one after the other, obviously. You know, the manager and the co-manager of the pub in Manchester,
Yeah.
and they said they were here. They was on a pub crawl. They ended up here. They ended up here. They were here. They weren't in Manchester. But get onto this. They weren't in Liverpool. But get onto this. They brought in this fella named Campbell, who was serving, a sentence of, I don't know, 6 months or something, or a year or so, I don't know, in Strangeways. And he said he was a witness, like a star witness, like the landlords as well, and his wife, and patrons of the pub saying, yeah, they were there, they were in there. They weren't in Liverpool, they were here in Manchester. Now, they left, this is what they said, they left at 11:30 that night. And Campbell, he verified it, because Campbell admitted, we went to burgle a factory when we left the pub. Right? So you've got these powerful witnesses. You've got the patrons of the pub saying,
yeah, you've got the evidence there.
Got the evidence there that they weren't there at the scene of the crime. They weren't even seen at the crime scene. They weren't seen or nothing. Now, remember when we've spoken on the Liverpool pods, right? I know you think I'm digressing, I'm not, people, honestly. And we've said, if Liverpool, for example, were going to buy a player, but they come out with spin of why we never bought the player, you see? So this is the spin now. And it was brilliant. Remember, back in those days, pubs shut at 10 o'clock. And everybody had to be out by 10:10.
Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, please ring up and you had to leave by 10:10.
Yeah.
Don't forget, they left the pub at 11:30. And they said, these are top barristers. These are the fellas like that. Brilliant. And they said, would you believe the landlords of this pub and the patrons who broke the law every single night by allowing people, drunkards, into their pub? Who do you believe? The police or the liars? Who do you believe? People who are already broke the law. And as for Campbell, how much is he getting paid to say this? Sitting in jail? How much is he going to be worth when he comes out for saying such lies? Trying to get these two murderers off the hook. What did they say about the jury? What kind of a jury were they?
Yeah.
Middle class.
there's all the seeds planted. So
Excuse me. Yeah,
you can't look at that case with an open mind because
yeah,
someone's painted it,
yeah,
colouring book there, done, dot to dot.
yeah. Simple as that, isn't it? So this is how it went. And there was blood found on Burns's clothes. Blood was found. But it wasn't of Mrs. Rimmer. It wasn't of Mrs. Rimmer. And he only has one witness for the prosecution. And that was Maria Milne. Maria Milne, 17-year-old illegal immigrant prostitute. Terrified. Terrified. So, how do you think they were found? The prosecution went right in. They said all the evidence. They had this McLaughlin, who was still sitting in jail, by the way. But they didn't bring him in. They only had the star witness, and that was that Maria Milne, who was terrified and couldn't hardly get out anything. And she was saying, yeah, I was Burns's. Even Burns's mother was a witness to say it. He was with me. He was in my house.
Wow.
And his friend Devlin, he stayed the night. He stayed the night with my son. He was not in Liverpool. And again, it spun. Oh, there's a mother whose son is going around burgling places.
Yeah.
Terrorizing people.
Yeah.
And she's saying, oh, believe me, because my son was here. Would you believe her? Would you believe her?
Yeah.
So this is how they put it over.
Yeah.
It's a theatre. It's a magnificent theatre. These are the greatest actors of all time.
Yeah.
So, but you had Rose Ivor saying, nothing was found. Nothing. They weren't there. Right. So how do you think they were found when the jury went out?
Sadly, Frank, I think they were found guilty.
They certainly were. They were found guilty.
There's nowhere for the jury to go, given that wall of lie after lie after lie after lie, and the fear that goes with that. Even the jury themselves are not going to want to appear the enemy of the police or the court system.
Okay. Now, to end it, and this is the defence for the two lads putting it over. Forensics could not find any blood matches on Mrs. Rimmer. They couldn't find a blood match of Burns and Devlin.
Yeah.
They couldn't find blood on Burns and Devlin matching Mrs. Rimmer. Also, there was no fingerprints belonging to them. They weren't seen at the scene of the crime. They weren't seen. And the blood found on Mrs. Rimmer was that of a different person. It was not, and it wasn't Mrs. Rimmer. It was somebody else's blood. You see?
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, the defence came out and said about the Rialto. They said this girl wasn't even in the Rialto.
Yeah.
The two fellas who's supposed to have met weren't there either. So you see how powerful the law was to get one over, to get a couple of people out the way.
Yeah.
And that's what the likes of Obama did, to get two lads out the way. And that's what he did.
It's to hang the crime up, isn't it?
Of course. And he succeeded. And both of them were hanged. Both of them lads were hanged. Injustice? Yes. Terrible injustice.
One of the poor lads was hung in Liverpool, wasn't he?
Yeah.
The other lad hung in Manchester.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Was there a moment in time where common sense prevailed and someone said they didn't do it?
Yeah, of course. It's like, remember the cameo murder?
Yeah.
George Kelly.
Yeah.
Now, George Kelly, he was such a black marketeer from the Bullring area. And if you think about it, Barmer, he said once to Barmer, he couldn't catch him. Barmer could never catch him. And Barmer said, I'm going to get you one day. And he always drank in the Beehive, the bottom of Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, know it well.
So anyway, he said to Barmer, look, he said, I know you've got a bad job. He said, why don't we just settle our differences once and for all? Let's go around the back. Just me and you. And Barmer went. So Barmer said to him, I'm going to have you one day. Now, the point is, George Kelly ended up hanged.
Yeah.
And it came out. One of our relations, actually, Sant'Angeli, I forget his first name, who wrote a book about the cameo murder. And he actually got George Kelly a posthumous pardon because he didn't do it.
This is in our times, and it's like
it was 19. The murders happened. The cameos murders happened in 1949, and it was only a few years ago that he was exonerated from any part of the crime. All because of Barmer. And do you know what it was, Anthony? Barmer used to knock about with a girl named Doris, who was, how can I put this? She was the image of a young starlet back in the day, in Britain.
Yeah.
Named Yarny. And everyone was, she's like the Marilyn Monroe here, if you like.
Yeah.
And everybody, and George Kelly used to knock about with her, but Barmer started knocking about.
The evil eye of jealousy.
Yeah, I think everything is. But if you crossed Barmer in any possible way, he'd have you. And that was the case like that. That was the case. And it shocked the way it went about. What time is it? I can't even, I don't know what time. I was a loved a little break. Now, what I want to do now, the old curiosity shop murder. And it was about a man named George Walker. Now, George Walker, he was 82 years of age. And he was a retired tailor.
Yeah.
And he lived in Walbrecht Moor. And in one of his houses, don't we love Jason?
Yeah.
I love this man. I'm here, mate.
Oh,
Jason, a couple of things, mate. Can we have a break, please? So I haven't got the screen for the monitor on. You know, the monitor to my left, Jason. I haven't got it on for the map later on. Do I need to change something over? I suppose I do, don't I? So I'll have to do that during the break.
whilst drinking your cuppa.
Yeah, and I've still got half a cup. And cold, I don't mind cold tea, you know.
I can't do that. I don't mind cold coffee. More taste.
I don't like coffee at all.
Did this horrible Ben Copper, did he serve any time at all? No.
No, he was highly decorated. It's like Betterson, Hillsborough.
He spent his pension money on the golf course. The way they all go.
Oh, it's the way they all go. It's like Betterson. When he applied for the Chief Constable of Merseyside, and he was specifically asked on the thing, you know, answering questions sort of thing. Was you at Hillsborough? And he said no. And they found out that he was.
He was? Spin doctor?
Yep. He wants to know when we want a break. Can we have a break now, Jay?
Yeah.
Please.
For people who have followed the Liverpool Unraveled series, here's a piece of Liverpool unnoticed. So you've lived in Liverpool all your life and you think you know your own city. Well, what if someone asked you to point them in the right direction for a little piece of Egypt? Where would you tell them to go? Well, right here is the little piece of Egypt when you look at this. We haven't only got one Sphinx, we have four, and they're right here on the grounds of Liverpool University. And imagine this, if Liverpool has its own parliament, this is the building I'd choose to represent Liverpool and its MPs. So come with me and have a look inside. If this was the Houses of Parliament and you were here On May the 11th, 1812, you would have heard 2 shots ring out. Bang, bang! There was deafening silence. And then chaos broke out. MPs started to realise that Spencer Perceval, the Prime Minister, had just been shot. Not only had been shot, he'd been fatally wounded. 2 questions have to be answered. Why would anybody want to assassinate the British Prime Minister, Spencer Perceval? And second, who? Intellectuals like the poets Wordsworth and Blake really thought that this was the first shot of the revolution. Of course it wasn't, but there was one man who had a revolt against the British establishment, and in particular, our British Prime Minister, Spencer Perceval. The assassin was John Bellingham of Duke Street, Liverpool. We have to go back in time to the events leading up to May the 11th, 1812, and that tragic day, because John Bellingham actually traded with Russia, and his Russian agent went bankrupt. And unfortunately for Bellingham, he was thrown into a debtor's prison here, where he spent a few months. On his release, he came out, but went straight over to Russia, where he ordered the Russian government to pay him compensation. Unfortunately for Bellingham, he was thrown in jail there. And on his release from there, he had this terrible, terrible angst against the British government, and in particular, Spencer Perceval. And when he got no joy at all from the British government, because he wanted compensation off them. And unfortunately for him, he was getting no compensation off anybody. He even wrote to the Prince Regent. Prince Regent wrote back saying, "I'm sorry, I can't help." So therefore, what Bellingham did, he acquired 2 pistols, and the plot manifested. Bellingham, on the 11th of May, 1812, went to the Houses of Parliament, and it was there that he jumped from behind a column as Spencer Perceval, the British Prime Minister, was walking down to take his seat, and he shot him. There were 2 local MPs who knew Bellingham. One was George Gascoigne, and the other, Bannister Tarleton. And it was they who apprehended Bellingham until he was arrested. Bellingham was tried and convicted of the crime and actually hanged at Newgate Prison exactly 1 week later on the 18th of May, 1812. We've only ever had one assassination of a British Prime Minister. Through sheer frustration and circumstance, Bellingham became the ultimate in political villainy by assassinating the British Prime Minister, Spencer Perceval. All right. Behind. Oh, yeah. Oh, hello, Mr. Shields. How are you, mate? William Rathbone had taken the initiative. And you're moaning to me about getting it done. Right.
Oh, hello, Mr. Shields. Just get it done. Just get it done.
Wyndham Sadler. Off. Did you hear that? The big noise. Did you get it in? No. Was it okay? Therefore, Agnes Jones, through a dedication and a sacrifice, has become
them bother you, Frank. Don't let them bother you.
I said, no, he's got
God save us from assassins and traffic.
But Dan was talking about Douglas Jones, as I said.
Yeah.
It was a long speech. And I got right to the end. And I was made up. Because I wasn't reading up a prompting or anything like that. I was just, off the cuff. And
Well,
as I said, I had 4 or 5 takes.
Spencer Percival one as well. You
Yeah.
have me sitting on the end of the seat on everything, seeing if something comes in front or whatever. Classic. Brilliant.
But it just shows you, doesn't it? It was only the 11th yesterday, and Jason, I didn't know he was putting that on.
Yeah.
The 11th of May, for and it's great, just like, it's not coincidental, it's like anniversaries, isn't it, really? Yes, so Spencer Percival was assassinated on my birthday, 1912.
Well, do you know what? There's been far more worthy targets in British prime ministers since, and not so much an egg thrown at him.
It just shows you, though, me personally, when I do things, or I try to do things, that is, Jason again, he'd be telling me off. It was coincidence, yeah. All right, yeah. I think he's good, though. I think he's good. The 11th of May, 1812, like today, the 12th. And do you know that man, Bellingham, by the way?
Yeah.
He was arrested. He was tried. And he was convicted to hang all in 1 week. He was hanged on the 18th of May, exactly a week after the murder.
Yeah.
And do you know why he did that? Because even Wordsworth said at the time, this is the first shot of the revolution. Because he had a daughter to a French girl, during their revolution, 1879, French Revolution. And all the intellectuals, they were waiting for a revolution in this country.
Yeah.
And Wordsworth actually said that's the first shot of the revolution.
Yeah.
So he went, get him convicted and get him hanged, get him out the way. We don't want any, demonstrations and shouting his name. And,
ironically, it was Spencer Percival, I think, who was a lawyer, who got passed laws so that you and I and some of our gang, our guys, could not meet on the street corner and
that's right.
plan to do something.
That's right.
I forget the terminology now, but it's like we were all uncouth.
Well, they started calling it vagrancy.
Yes.
And loitering with intent.
Yeah.
And not only that, all the parks in Liverpool, the likes of, anyone, you had to be well dressed, well kept and whatever. The likes of me, I couldn't go in or I'd be arrested for vagrancy in a public park.
Yeah.
They said, oh no, it's only for the rich.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was. And as you know, Spencer Percival's family ancestral home is in Calderstones, and the White Mansion House, and they wanted to knock it down a couple of years ago. That was disgusting. I had my pen thin, you know what I mean? Do you know the historical significance of this bloody place? Saved it anyway. Proud of that. I'm proud of her. You just knocked it down. They are you and our Manchester United lad. Thank you for enlightening me about the Devlin and Burns case, a failure of the judiciary more than a murder. Of course it was. But there's been loads like that, Johan. Been lots like, this TW, Gary Rigby. Even in goal, I remember the Cameo Cinema. I grew up not far from there. Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the most famous cases ever.
It was.
TW.
Yeah.
Even in Frank, Anthony, and Chat.
Even in TW.
He's a lovely lad. Just in time for the break. Yes.
Great break.
And Christopher says, hi, Frank and Anthony and everyone.
Evening, Christopher.
And get on to this. TW. These Liverpool history programmes of Frank are second to, thank you. Unbelievable that they never made national telly. I was asked to, Neil Oliver, he's a historian. And I got an email when I was with Tony Snell, and he said, hey, our superstar. And the email was for me to coincide with Neil Oliver going around the country talking history. I would have been doing mostly the Northwest and right down on the Southwest as well. He would have been all over the place here. And sent down a DVD, and I went to the head of the BBC, and he said, we can't have an accent like that presenting a history show. That's what he said. The way it is. It's the way it is. And the Redbird says, frank knowledge of Liverpool and its history is top. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Michael J. Lloyd. Hi, Frank, Anthony and Chat. Do you know why that park near Ullet Road is called? Yeah. It's called a mystery simply because they didn't know who donated it for children to play it, because children weren't allowed into parks. It's just like what I've been saying. And it was, I don't know what Holt it was, but it was one of them who presented it. He bought the land so that children, little kids, could go and play there.
Brilliant.
I don't know what Holt it was, but it was one of the shipping magnates anyway. And that's the way it is. Tito, what does loiter in it without intent look like to Larry? It's absolutely, yeah. It's so funny that. It's so funny, Tony LFC, even Frankie. Hello, Anthony. But you know, cheers, Tony. Thank you so much.
Tony, thank you.
You know, this can I do this other murder now?
Yeah.
Or shall I leave it until next week and do a little bit of? I could leave it till next. I'll tell you for why. Just give you a small snippet. And it's about a wonderful fellow. It really is about a wonderful fellow. And this fellow, he was. No, I won't do it. I'll do him next. I forget his first bloody name. I hate forgetting first. I tell you. His name is Pinnington. Right, and I know he was born in 1884. And he joined the Liverpool Scottish. He wasn't a pacifist, but he didn't believe in killing a fellow human being. So he joined the Liverpool Scottish as a stretcher bearer. as a stretcher bearer. Now, when you see footage of stretchers being, don't forget, the likes of trenches, they were like that. They weren't straight. They zigzagged. So what Mr. Pennington did, he shortened. It's like, do you know the way, like my walking stick, I can undo it and just do that. You know what I mean? Take it, make it shorter. Well, he did that with a stretcher so that they could get in and out quickly. Because there's a very famous piece of film footage where you see a lad, very famous, and he was killed a few minutes later, actually. And you see a fella, and he's looking up at the camera, he's just looking up, someone's taking a photograph of him, and he's got a soldier on his back, and he's just looking up like that. It's a very famous photograph, and the unfortunate thing, he was dead a few minutes later, going over the top. And that was the problem. They had to drag on the backs or whatever wounded soldiers, and that's why he shortened it. This particular. And what he did at a place called Julemont, he went in and brought back with Noel Chavas 19 wounded men from no man's land. They were wounded, they were badly wounded, and he went out with a stretcher and brought them back. And he got a mention. He got a sort of a medal, but Noel Chavas was awarded a second Victoria Cross. A second Victoria Cross. Just like that. You can't see it, can you? A Victoria Cross, a second one, which was unique in the. There it is. There. He wasn't the only man to win 2 Victoria Crosses, but he was the only man. There he is. There's the picture. There's the picture. Jason. Love him. That lad was dead. He was carrying him on his shoulders, Anthony. He was already dead. And when he got to and he put him down, he went over the top with the other lads and got killed. The last photograph. You see what I mean about, heroics, put it that way.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Heroics.
Yeah.
Now, I don't believe in propaganda, but I believed in propaganda with that war. We had to have propaganda. And I believed it in the Second World War because we had to have propaganda to keep, lifting the people of this country. I believed it, but I don't believe in propaganda today, because propaganda today is just pure misinformation, disinformation, and pure lies. That's the propaganda you get today. Johan says, I've learned more from these few streams of Frank's old videos than I've ever done watching the mainstream about Liverpool, the city, and the club. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
Man United, I'm not saying the Man United. I mean, a lad who doesn't live in Liverpool. To say that. It's just love. So anyway, that's what this Pennington did. He shortened the wonderful stretcher, so that the likes of that lad didn't have to do what he did, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And he went on after the war. He was wounded in the hand, actually. And he became a missionary in Africa.
Wow.
Mr. Pennington. And do you know what he used to do? Do you know what he used to do? I think this is a wonderful gesture as well, by the way. When he was working, he was an apprentice to, I don't know what he was apprentice to, I'm sorry. And his hobby was making violins. Making violins. And when Prince Charles became Prince of Wales at the inauguration at Carnarvon Castle, he was there and he presented him with a violin that he made. Isn't that wonderful?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
From a lad from Liverpool.
Wow.
And this is what, people ignore, like history. They don't want to know. And we've got to know our history. It's like the sickle. It's like the sickle, the submarine, the sickle.
Yeah.
And what happened there was shocking. What happened there was shocking. Because they made this sickle, well, they made the submarine in Camel Airs, and it was called the Thesis. The Thesis. Thetis. Not the Thesis, the Thetis. And on its trials, going along the Mersey, it just went like that. And it was stood up. It just nosedived into the bottom of the river. And it stood up like that. There was only, I think, 2 survivors from it. The rest perished.
Oh my God.
So they renamed it. They got us all right again. Whatever went wrong, they got us all right again. Second World War. And they named it the Sickle. And I'll tell you about it next week. Great story. And what had happened. I interviewed the able seaman from it. I interviewed him. Not in here, but in the old zone. And he was amazed. He was amazed, that I wanted to know about it.
Yeah.
He was only a little man, when I seen him. Little. And what a chap he was. And I'll tell you all about it next week.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. You'd love it, honestly. It's very poignant, actually. Right, so this fellow, George Walker, 82 years of age, and when he retired, he started selling. Obviously, through his life, he must have liked antiques. I think we all like antiques. And he started selling them. But he also started selling, funny enough, valves for the radio.
Yeah.
Because you're going back to the early 50s, 1953, to be honest. So you have to have a valve in you for radio.
Everything, right through to the 60s, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you know what, though, Andy? Have you noticed? You can have a watch.
Yeah.
And you can talk to people on a bloody watch. So the technology, a valve in its selling, to talk to someone on your watch.
Well, the valves obviously drove in our lifetime and in our lives. They drove the radios, the TV, and amplifiers for all the bands going out. And the way
when you look again, even before then, and you've got some of the greatest whiz people.
Yeah.
And one of them, Kirsten Holland, who made the very first. They say it was a German. It wasn't a German. It was this fella named Thurston Holland who in Rodney Street made the very first X-ray machine. You had Sir Oliver Lodge who sent out the very first radio broadcast
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
The world. So, the technology then, incredible. It was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But today, it's more mind-blowing,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Well, it is, but it's a strange thing, and I often have rants here at home because when something goes down, or when you're even out and about, and someone says, "Oh no, all the tills have gone down, the lights have gone out," and um, it's like a digital or a Wi-Fi or a fault that crucifies everything. You
Yes,
can't, nothing happens.
yeah.
There's the days where a piece of paper, a till that opens, or 12
It's
amps.
incredible. It's
Yeah,
it's it's incredible, the technology. But you know, it's like sail. The ships they used to blow off course.
yeah,
It's like the Pilgrim Fathers. They call them the founding fathers who sailed. They weren't sailing to where they were sailing to. They were actually sailing to Virginia. They were blown off course, and they ended up at Cape Cod. They ended up at Cape Cod, and that's where they love the history to begin with Thanksgiving, because they got there in 1620, and they had this wonderful bounty a year later. But that bounty they would never have had, only for the indigenous native, the Indian, because they were farmers. They were actually farmers.
yeah,
And when they got there, the founding fathers, they got there and went, "Oh, look at this. God has sent us this. It's the New Jerusalem, William Bradford."
yeah,
And they really thought that God had put it in the place. And it was the Indian crops. So a year later, they had this big bounty. And they called it Thanksgiving. Forget the indigenous native whose bounty it was.
no.
And
It's
that's your Thanksgiving. That's how it is today.
you. I mean, there's not many British people know that. English people, European people know that, and less American people know
Yeah.
the origin of that. You
Yeah.
wouldn't, you wouldn't celebrate it.
No.
Celebrate genocide, murder.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
it's crazy. If I remember right, Frank, your wonderful story tonight about the tragedy of the Manchester lads who were hung. They were the last two people to be hung, were they?
Yeah.
And in a matter of weeks after their death, then it was abolished. Capital punishment was abolished.
Yes.
And you can't help but think, my God, if that trial had been held up for 6 months, whatever,
Yeah. It
then
would have been reprieved.
they would have been reprieved.
That is.
It might have come out earlier that what a horrible.
Well, you had the likes of Ruth Ellis who was hanged.
Yeah,
She should never have been hanged, that woman.
no.
And it was shocking. The whole time. I think they liked hanging people. I really do.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying. And there's Johan says, "Frank, didn't they kill?" No. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they did. I thought you mentioned the Native American. The Native American, believe it or not, rode the buffalo. Because believe it or not, there was no such thing as a horse in America. It was the Europeans who brought the horses over to America. And they used to ride the buffalo. They were great hunters, the indigenous native. Great hunters. And we destroyed them. We destroyed them. We destroyed the culture of the indigenous American. Not only that, I keep saying to people, watch a film called Wind River with Jeremy Renner. Watch it. Still living on Indian reservations.
Yeah.
Think about it. But you're right there, Johan. Spot on there, they did. They killed over, I think it was 30 million. 30 million buffalo. And it's becoming a rare species now. Shall I tell you something funny? Absolute answer true. I was on holiday and I was with the other one. I was on holiday in Corfu and we got friendly with this Scottish couple and a Birmingham couple. Right, Birmingham couple. The lads was off his head. You're all right there, Frank. What are you drinking, mate? You know, this type of... Anyway, and we get invited up. He really gets invited up to Scotland for, I think it was Halloween. So, and he comes and he said, the Birmingham lad said, listen, we're going up in our car. It's no use you going up in yours, you know. We'll come and pick you up and take you up there and bring you back again. So I said, okay, yeah, that's great, that. Forget the lad's name. So anyway, that couple came up and we went up. You're not going to believe this. Driving along and it's like, going dark. And we're on a windy road in Scotland somewhere. And it said, beware the basin, right? Beware the basin. Because there was a basin going down or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, Frank. I said, what? He said, I didn't know there was any bison up here, you know. I said, what do you mean bison? He said, bison, you know, what you see in America and on the cowboy films. I said, no. I said, it's a basin. Then he came to the basin. Was you can't make these up. You can't make these up. Honestly.
Well, you've taken me straight back to our feet, the same pets. Like that. Yeah.
It's just crazy. We were laughing, but he couldn't get over it, you know.
Yeah.
He said, do you think it's my accent? I said, no, I said, it's just you took them for a bison running around the moors of the islands of Scotland. Anyway, so getting back to Paul George and the old curiosity shop. And on January, so don't forget, it was 1953, January, freezing cold. Two schoolboys go to the house because this is around between 12 and 1. 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock. And you go there because the dad said, listen, before you go back to school, get me 2 valves. Go around to the Mr. Walker's. So he said, all right. So he went around, knocked on the door. And the lads who work for George, you know, because he loved antiques himself. He loved antiques himself. And he answered the door. And he said, oh, he's got none in. No valves have come in yet. They won't be here until next week. I don't know what even day it was then, you know. But he said, they won't be here till next week. Sorry. So he said, okay, and walked away. Now, what has happened the sister of George Walker tried to get hold of him. And she went down, she couldn't get in. You know, she's knocking up. This is the next day, by the way. And she couldn't get in. So she went to the neighbours. She said, have you seen George about, do you think he's all right? They said, we don't know. So anyway, this fella, one of the fellas looked through the letterbox. And he just seen a pair of legs on show. And he said, I think something's happened. You know, the staircase and legs. So he called the police. So the police came in, broke in, bump. You find them. I'll have to go back. I forgot to mention. You know, to the Burns and Devlin case.
Yeah.
Should have asked. Who do you think, mate? If they didn't do it, because I used to ask my students, guilty or not guilty, and they used to say not guilty and whatever. Do you think they did it? When I told them the verdict, they said no, definitely didn't do it. I said, well, who do you think? Now, don't forget, she has a son, right? Named Tom Rimmer, 31. Do you know what he was? He was an ex-policeman. Not only was he an ex-policeman, but he was heavily in debt. Now, you know that the police stick together, don't you?
Yeah.
Imagine. So, who did the murder of Mrs. Rimmer? Who was the murderer? Don't forget, nothing was found of them there. There was no evidence, and it was all circumstantial, like a lot of cases were circumstantial back in the day.
Yeah.
Anyway, we carry on. So, how she went down there, neighbours got hold of her and said, listen, Mr. Walker's, your brother's dogs at the whining. He had two little dogs, and they were whining all day and all night long. So they broke in, found him dead, blood everywhere. Blood everywhere. Found him dead. So the only suspect they had right away was the young lad who worked for them, who loved antiques, who wanted to know about antiques. Now let's take this lad as background. He was very religious. And he was always, him and his little girlfriend, he was only 20, him and his girlfriend used to go to church with their parents. They went in a group every Sunday.
Yeah.
And he was an honest lad. Everyone said he was an honest lad. Right?
Yeah.
Where's what happened? They arrested him. Put him under suspicion of murder, Mr. Walker. Now, items were taken, especially watches. Valuable watches, vintage watches, antique watches. And then, when he was arrested, they went, there's a load of evidence here. A lot of evidence. So he went on trial on the 8th of April, 1953. Just a couple of months later, you might as well say. They had all the evidence here. And for the Crown was Mr. Edward wool QC, because the Queen's on the throne, not a KC, it's Queen's Council now. For the defence, Miss Heilbronn, again Rose Heilbronn, she was for the defence. And the Crown claimed that Mr. Walker's blood found on Todd's blue suit and inside pocket. So they said, our blood was found in his an inside pocket. This is the way he came about. Talking to the jury and then pointing at the person in the dock. His blood was found. That's George Walker's, I'm sorry. George Walker's, that 82-year-old old man, his blood was found on his suit and inside pocket. And on his Macintosh. Right. Now, don't forget, Anthony and people, don't forget that this particular murder, he was really savagely attacked. Savagely. Let's take that. And also what they found, because back in the day then, they wore crepe soles. Do you ever remember, like teddy bug thing shoes? Crepe soles.
Yeah, yeah.
And this footprint was found in a little pool of blood. And when he left, what people witnessed was that they seen a tall, pale-looking young man leave the premises of Mr. Walker, heavily blood-stained, a heavily blood-stained Macintosh. Yeah. So now you have the accused, the lad by the name of John Todd. And they said, the defence says, well, hang on a minute. How did the blood get there? You're accusing him that, he murdered him. But the prosecution also said watches were stolen. And we recovered one in John Todd's home. Right? John Todd's home, we recovered one. So you think that you'd have them bang to rights with the blood and everything, and the watch. And even his fingerprints were found on the murder weapon, which was a broken axe handle. Bang to rights, this fella. Bang to rights. The footprints, you can't get any clearer down the footprints, can you?
No.
And then besides the footprints, you've got the blood on a handkerchief, on a Macintosh, and in his inside pocket. But the defence said he's never been in trouble in his life. He was a churchgoer, lived with his parents, and respected Mr. Walker because Mr. Walker gave him this job to learn about antiques.
Yeah.
And they also said the blood found, and it was Mr. Walker's blood, by the way. And what it was, he had a nosebleed, Mr. Walker, at the bottom of the stairs. He had a nosebleed. And he pulled his hanky out and said, "Here, all that." Well, Todd ran in and brought in a tea towel from the kitchen so we could, and that's how the blood was on his handkerchief, and he put it in his inside pocket.
Yeah.
Now, remember what the witnesses said. They seen coming out a tall, pale lad, coming out, young man, not a lad, young man coming out of the house, heavily blood-stained. Macintosh. Heavily blood-stained. So, what impression was a heavily blood-stained Mac? What would that be to you? Heavily blood-stained. Where would it be? Heavily blood-stained.
On a suit, shirt, or
everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. On his Macintosh, especially. On his Mac, heavily blood-stained. So there was only a little bit of blood found on his inside pocket, which he didn't deny, nor on his handkerchief. And there was also a little bit of blood. This is not the heavily stained. Here, a little bit of blood. And he said it was when I was putting my raincoat on, and I pulled it over. That's where the blood went on. After holding the handkerchief. And there was only about that much. A little scrape of blood, which, if anyone would have been looking, they wouldn't have noticed that blood. And it certainly wasn't heavily stained.
Yeah.
And he actually went to that night, him and his girlfriend was going to, went to see a film. And he showed up, and the defence, Miss Albrow, said, "How was he when he met you at 7 o'clock?" She said, he was just him. He was, just quiet him. It was quiet John. He just came up and said, "We're going to enjoy this." See? Now, his background with being very quiet and nice, and if he would have murdered him, he would have been very jumpy and nervous, like anyone else would be. If they had no intent, you've got to understand what a murder is like. And if you're you, a man, me, and we murdered someone, we'd be like that. We'd be shaking. Especially being a young lad and going to meet your girlfriend. And she said there was nothing out of the ordinary. Even the prosecution couldn't break it down. And he'd seen the film. He went home, then he was arrested the next day. As they said, Todd had no previous convictions. He had an impeccable background. And a profound religious background as well. I'm not saying that, if you've got a religious background, and everything's hallelujah, I'm not saying that you couldn't become a murderer. I'm not saying that.
But it's a character trait, which is all
good. Yeah. And as she said, he showed no signs of stress or anything. Now, she wouldn't lie. And she said, "I was devastated when he was arrested." So what do you think about him then? really, what it was all circumstantial again. That bit of blood found on him. No
It's
witnesses were there. Yeah, it was him coming out the house. Not one.
just an easy target.
Very easy. See,
Chris.
these people want quick results, no matter who it is, and get them off the street and say, oh, isn't the police great? They caught them.
Yeah.
No matter who they are, whether they're guilty or innocent. So how do you think he went on? Was he found guilty or not?
Yeah. I think unless
Go on. Yeah, go on.
unless there's a change in the social scene, and then he was respected by the jurors. He's done all the right things in his life, you know. He's behaved exactly as you would want your son or your brother to behave, not in any shifty way at all.
Yeah,
You like to
absolutely.
see that there's people out there that see that good, but unfortunately, as you described with the previous case, it's like scripted.
Remember when I said at the beginning, Miss Rose Heilbronn, she was now in the throes of male dominance.
Yeah.
And they didn't like it. So they would try to undermine her at every turn, albeit she was a superb counsellor. Superb. And yet they tried to undermine her. And in the... See, I gave this, I think I made a film of it. I'm sure it is. Down at St. George's Hall, in the Crown Court.
Yeah.
And it was acting out. I said, on film, I think I did it for the college. This is how they did it. And right to the jury. Right to where the jury sat. And this is how they portrayed it. This man, this smug young man, albeit that the lads was just sitting there like that. Right? Smug. Don't let him kid you. He's a cold-blooded murderer. Now, where's the defence again? This is how they acted. It was a theatre to them.
Yeah.
These barristers.
Yeah.
Now, here's another thing. No watches was found. Only that one in John Todd's home, in his drawer. Now, do you know what the excuse with that for? They said, where did you get this, you? And he said, Mr. Walker gave me it as a present. And they didn't believe him, right?
Yeah.
And he said, ask Mr. Harrington or Harrison. Ask him in Dale Street, a watch repairer and a watch, sells watches. And Mr. Walker asked him for a watch, a special watch, for the young boy who works for me. And he went down and see Mr. Harrington, and he said, yeah, Mr. Walker bought the watch. And this young lad ended up getting it. And it was a present for John Todd. Now, should that gone a long way? It should have done, because there was no watches ever found. And that was the only watch that was found in his house. And yet it was a present. But they took no notice of it. The jury, the jury or anyone else, especially the prosecution, especially the police, they took no notice of it. That wasn't it. You stole it. You murdered them and stole it. Where's the rest of the stuff?
Well, they are the voices of establishment.
Exactly.
You've done before in other cases, and I can just say in my mind, you walk up those steps at St. George's Hall courtroom, and they hear you before they can see you.
Oh,
You know how claustrophobic those steps, and you get to the top. Whoever you are, you automatically look guilty because you've come from. You're not sitting there. You're not walking in as modern day courts are now. You're put through it before you're found guilty before you tried.
of course you are. And that's the way it is. And the prosecution always wants a conviction. Always wants a conviction. Whether, I always remember a fellow by the name of, what was his bloody name? And he was in fact, he started off as a defence barrister. And he always said, the people that he was defending, he actually said, not to them, not in the court, but to his friends, fellow barristers. He said, anyone standing behind me, there's no smoke without fire. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So even a barrister defence always believed that whoever standing behind him and he was defending was guilty anyway. And he became a judge. And do you know what he was a judge in? The Cameo murders.
Oh my gosh.
So, how do you think this went? Was he guilty or not?
I think sadly and probably that he was found guilty because it was easy.
Yeah, exactly. It was easy to find him guilty. The police are all made up, there's another one. And this is the way, they want the statistics to show high level of police competence in catching criminals, no matter whether the burglars or whether the murderers. It's as simple as that. Anyway, he was found guilty. And Harry Livermore, you've heard of him, haven't you? He's dead now, Harry Livermore, the solicitor.
Yeah.
He tried to get it overturned because he said, he failed, unfortunately. He said Todd was absolutely innocent of this crime.
Yeah.
And all the evidence that the police had, was circumstantial. Weak circumstantial evidence. Very weak as well. Not strong, but weak, very weak circumstantial evidence.
Yeah.
And he failed. Went down to the Home Office and he failed to get a stay of execution. So, now what the hangman, right? Now don't forget that Todd was a very profound religious young lad,
Yeah.
right? And he came out with this quote, and he said it to the hangman. He said, "Will God forgive me for pleading not guilty? Because I didn't do it." Meaning, he pleaded not guilty, yet his peers and the law found him guilty. So he must have been thinking, God might think that I'm telling lies. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll read that quote out again. Will God forgive me for pleading not guilty? Because I didn't do it. You see?
Yeah.
See how profound this lad was?
That's his next point is to meet his maker.
It's, with a sin on his soul.
Yeah.
And asking that the hangman, will God forgive me because I pleaded not guilty? The hangman was none other than Albert Pierpont. And do you know what Albert Pierpont said? He believed Todd to be innocent, an extremely rare confession from him. He believed, he said, I've hanged an innocent young man.
I believe these were the cases that Albert Pierpont said, enough is enough.
Yeah.
It's monstrous. Because he had youth Alice. I'm not sure if he hung the lads that we talked about earlier on, but this was
Yeah,
like,
he hanged one here, yeah, because they got hanged at the same time.
well, this is like, he sees the injustice, and he said enough, and he walked away, didn't he, from the job, shortly after.
Did you know that he hanged his mate?
Yeah,
He hanged his mate, his drinking partner.
guy used to come into the pub. He
Yeah,
owned
and always had a drink with him, his mate.
Yeah.
He hanged him at Rome.
Yeah.
And he said, he went up to him and he said, you know, this is on the trap door. He said, don't worry, it'll be over quickly.
Yeah.
Give him a shot of scotch. Gone.
Yeah.
God, man, I couldn't do that.
Yeah, the chap had killed his wife, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, he killed his wife.
I remember reading Pierpoint's biography in the 70s, the 80s. And I think, did he have a pub in Southport? Was it
I think St. Helens was a bit. Or did he come from St. Helens? I don't know. He did have a pub.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was St. Helens or in Southport, as you said. Not quite so sure.
Maybe someone in chat could jolt us. But it's just like mind blowing, isn't it? Because you've got he's kind of programmed to do the right thing, and he went through the whole thing of hanging the war criminals at the end of the Second World War, and after trial stuff. Didn't do everyone, but he did a lot. And then by the time the 50s were coming, he was saying, this is wrong, this is not right. And Ruth Ellis, obviously, that really damaged him. And there's a young story saying now, that would see anyone off.
Well, as Johan said, law is a dirty profession. Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
It is. And the act of law goes way back, as you described excellently in the history shows, right back to Guy Fawkes and the like. And everyone's petrified to raise their voice against the law. He used to say, oh, we'll have you as well.
Yeah. You were terrified to open your mouth.
Yeah.
Terrified. Barry Aldred says, Frank, am I right in thinking that nobody knew what he did? I don't think. And he wasn't happy as time passed by. You're right there. He's talking about Albert Pierpont. Yeah. Did you know he hanged more criminals, after the Nuremberg trials?
Yeah.
He hanged more people than any other hangman.
Yeah.
Albert. He was the best hangman.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. His father was verging on alcoholic, and I think his uncle did it for a while as well, which you would. I mean, we talk about now post-traumatic and stress and everything, but going through that, having to do that job, say, how can you live with yourself? Well,
It's not that. There was a fella during the early part of the 19th century, 1800s, and his name was Calcraft, and he was always drunk. He was a hangman,
Yeah.
and he was one of the worst hangmen. And he hangs a lad up here at, we call it the Wreck today, up by Westminster Road,
Kirkdale way, yeah.
jail. And he hangs it was public, and he hanged this fella. Now, this fella, when they put him on the trapdoor, it wouldn't work. And they pulled it 3 times, it wouldn't work. So anyway, they said, we're going to get him the next time. So he went on the trapdoor, and fellas underneath him were holding the trapdoor. And when they heard a bang, they let it go, and he dropped. But the rope was too long, and he landed on the floor. He landed on the floor, and he took the rope around his neck, and they were showing.
Yeah.
And he thought, when he seen, obviously, if you're getting hanged and you're going to collapse, you're going to faint or whatever.
Terrific, yeah.
And when he came around, he thought he was in heaven. He really thought he was in heaven, this lad.
Yeah.
And they went, no, you're not in heaven. You've got to be hanged again. And there was a vicar and a priest there, and they were saying, you can't hang this man. It's been proved he's innocent, because he was always saying that, I forget his name. He was always saying he was innocent. He had never committed this crime. It said the trapdoor never wasn't released after 3 times. The 4th time, the rope was too long.
Yeah.
And anyway, he said, we've got to hang him. So what Calcraft did, he actually shortened the rope.
Yeah.
He shortened the rope, which he should never have done. Because when the fellas were opening up, holding us up again, and don't forget the priest and the vicar, they were pleading to the people, don't hang him, he's innocent. Do not hang him, it's wrong. So anyway, they hanged him. And as he was swinging, that's the other thing. The mast that they pull over, the hood, was too small. And it only came to here. He couldn't get it down to cover his face. His eyes protruded. His tongue elongated and went to the side. And people were screaming. And then his head came off because of the shortness of the rope.
Yeah.
Fell off into the crowd.
Yeah.
And that was the last hanging in public because of this dope.
Wow.
He couldn't hang anybody properly.
Wow. Just to kind of the great thing about Robert Pierpoint, that he would go in and he would just, sometimes he would look through the gate, a window in the cell, and he'd gauge the height and if they were heavy or thin, and then scientifically he would arrange the drop, and he never messed it once.
Oh.
There were other people he was asked to work alongside with who were doing exactly what you just described. It would have decapitated people rather than nothing humane about it. I mean, what's humane about capital punishment? Well,
See, people, I'm glad you said that because people have always asked me, would you bring capital punishment back? And every time I've said no, they said, well, what about child killers? What about the murder of police? I said, you can't categorize murders. If one murder, you can't just say like a murder of a policeman is far worse than a murder of some other person who's not a policeman. I said, it's murder. It's the taking the life of a human being. I said, so they're all the same, whether it's a child, whether it's a policeman, or whether it's someone down the road.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
It
So, no, you can't.
Would be a fascinating debate one time on the current affairs thing, but I mean, I regard myself as a lifetime pacifist, but there's some crime that you hear now, and the continuation of those crimes, not just the murders, it's how they behave afterwards. It's like, well, there's no way on this world you could say that that person or those people are going to be rehabilitated to come out and get on the same bus as you, or it's what you do. And knee-jerk reaction is get them off the planet, take them away. It's like...
I always remember this fella growing up in Jerry Gardens. We had a very, it was a peaceful community, really was. It was really peaceful. And I met this fella who used to live there and went to our school. And I see, I brought this girl, brought this girl home, and she lived in Park Road. And I was walking down, and I was always saw don't go to that Park Road, So anyway, this girl lived in Park, and I was coming home, and it was after midnight. And I was a bit wary, to be honest, I'm being honest. And I'm walking home, and I see these, like a gang of fellas, about 10 of them on the opposite side. And I said to myself, if these come over, I'm done for. And they did. They all came over. But this fella was from Jerry Gardens in the gang. And he went, all right, Stevie. He thought it was our kid. He went, all right, Stevie, how are you? And I went, all right, He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going home. Anyway, he said, he's all right, boys. It's Stevie. I thought it was our kid. Good job. He ended up murdering a prostitute. Isn't that mad? Lived on the top land. A pairs of top land that he lived. Saved me life. Stevie. All right. But anyway, I'll get on to these wonderful comments. Arthur Schofield. Hiya, Frank. You too, Anthony. Nice to see you back together again. Been a while. You are both looking well, I might add. Take care. You have been missed by the chat. How's that, Anthony?
Thank you, Arthur. That's wonderful. Thank you.
That means you can't go on your holidays with Laney. You'll be missed.
Do me work? That's cool. When we go to Rome, we'll go on, please. When I'm sitting in the garden.
From over there. Bring our laptop to me from over there. Barry Aldridge. I saw the documentary. I think Timothy Spall played. He did. He played Pierpont, Albert Pierpont.
Yeah.
Great actor then.
Oh, excellent actor.
Timothy Spall. And George said, the last UK public hanging was in 1868. An Irish Republican found guilty of the Clerkenwell prison explosion, which killed 36 people. There you go. But was that classed as British? Because that murder of sorry, the hanging of that fellow was 1866. But and again, what do I know? Yeah, it could easily be Georgia. I just don't know. But like I'm talking about England, if you know what I mean. That could have been an island, unless the younger mayor, I don't know.
That's if it was British law, the occupation of Ireland. We go down that route.
Yeah, he was hanged at Newgate, George said. Mind you, he would bring the Irish over, wouldn't he? He'd try them and hang them. Arthur Schofield, strange you have been discussing a guy being hanged. I watched a Western movie last week. It was called The Hanged Man. The verdict was, you can't hang him again. He's dead. Yep. That's a good one, that. But it gets you talking, doesn't it? Well, anyway, I'm going to end now. It's 20 past 9. 20 past.
Okay.
It's been all right tonight. And you know what? I never put any of this on, you know. I didn't put it on. I didn't put it on.
That's okay.
And I wanted to show
Yeah.
certain things. I really did. Hang on, where am I?
Was the hanging spot in towards London Road, was that still used?
Yeah, I'll try and get it, yeah. No, it's not on here. I've got a bigger map than this. I've got a bigger map. The hanging spot, the gibbet, we had a gibbet here. It was up at the top of London Road, where the Roy Castle hospital is. And that was where the gibbet was. But back in the day when they had the gibbet, sometimes if they wanted to be really cruel, they hanged you by a chain around your neck, not a rope.
Yeah.
So you'd suffer more. A chain.
You know, I'm not going to sleep tonight, don't you, Frank? I'll be on the road about 3:30 in the morning.
And lovely Toscana says, the British police were widely respected abroad, but it was years later that it came to light that they did whatever was necessary to close the case, guilty or not. I think that's what I've been saying on the tonight's stream, to be honest, Toscana. Honestly. And George said, stranger still, the abolition of public hangings came shortly after Barrett, the Irishman, was put to death in May 1868. I think it was shocking, you know, public hangings. But you could even go like over to France, and he was still executing them by guillotine in public.
Yeah.
Up until the 1950s.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Because they regarded that as more ethical.
Yeah.
Than hanging someone.
And do you know what, George? George, just seeing George there, mate. Do you know what, Anthony? Do you know when they put you on the like a board, you know, for you to be executed? They didn't put your face down, you know. They put you like that on your back.
So you saw what was
push you through. So it'll be a clean cut. Horrible that. No harm. 2 great historical cases for 12 Angry Men. That was a great film, 12 Angry Men. Great film. And is it called the two-tier justice? You wouldn't cocoa. You've only got to look at the Lord Lucan case.
Yeah.
You've only got to look at the case, and he was never found, ever. And he was never brought to justice. He'd be dead now, though. He was never brought to justice.
No, but
So
the
there is a two-tier.
interesting documentary over the past few months where he supposedly found the son of the nanny who was murdered. It's not for me to say if it's true or not. People have to make up their mind. But it was on TV. I don't know if it's BBC or Channel 4, where they found him. Been living abroad for years. Australia.
But why didn't they bring him back? Or is he dead?
No.
You just don't know, do you?
Money talks a lot, though.
Yeah. Do you see that bridge?
Yes. Wow.
See that bridge, right? Right. Now that's St. Nick's Church in the background to the left.
Wow.
And the other tower building is the second tower building, by the way.
Yeah.
You had the first one, and that came down, and they built that. But that, if you look at it closely, that bridge, beautiful, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's Venetian. It's a Venetian bridge.
The whole thing. Yeah.
He copies it. Wouldn't it be fantastic if that was still there today?
Absolutely. Yes, it would.
But, as you know,
We've got to make way for progress.
Yeah.
And we might get a 10.
The progress as well, that's shocking. And George says the referent Robert, I've seen Robert Key from Ireland at TV History. Great Robert Key, by the way, George. And Toscana, the lovely Toscana. Thank you, Franco and Anthony. It's been great listening to you both. This is very interesting history, not like the Spin and Jenny that they taught us at school. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's really lovely. And George says, beautifully detailed picture. Wow. It is. It was Venetian. And if you ever come to Liverpool, George, and you go along Dale Street, you'll find another building that's Venetian. And what it is, it used to be our council house. And when you look up, it's a hotel now. And when you look up, you see this big clock tower. And that's Venetian. That's Venetian, because the architect said, I'm going to do a Venetian clock tower.
Wow. That's on as well, isn't it? That beautiful.
Sorry, Hans. And Johan says, is that Valhalla? And as he says, it looks heavenly. Shame what's happened to it. They just knock everything down, unfortunately, Johan, in the name of progress. The progress, you want to have a look at the bloody progress. And George says, history, my favourite subject. Superb stuff, lads. Oh, thank you, George. Thank you. Thank you.
A second that, George.
So what have you enjoyed tonight?
I really have. Thank you. I have. You know, the sadness is there, the injustice is there, but, you know.
I know.
No,
Well, I
no.
had to do them. I thought I could do them within the hour, and I couldn't because there was. I just wanted to get them done.
Okay.
Before you go, Frank, what's the history behind the Picton clock? The Picton clock. It's strangely enough, there was a lock up there. The Picton clock. There was a lock up. If you're talking about up by Woolton Way, that one, Picton. See, we have a Picton library here, right in the heart of the city centre. We have a wonderful Picton library. But if you're talking about the Picton clock, and there's a lock up facing it, and it used to tell, believe it or not, the prisoners the time of the execution. And Picton himself had it built. And he also had the lock-up built, Picton himself. So as I said, we've got a Picton library, which I love.
Yeah.
I've done a hell of a lot of research there. Myself, where I had to do some research in the Picton library here in Liverpool, William Brown Street.
Beautiful. Timeless in there.
It is. It is. It is. So fancy looking at a clock, you couldn't help but see it and hear the tick. That was a second of your life being taken away.
Yeah.
Mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Johan, take care, Sir Carlyle and Sir Brown, and the lovely legends in the chat. It was wonderful spending these couple of hours with you legends. Isn't that lovely? There's my old mate.
Lovely.
Great show. Thanks, Frank, Anthony, and chat. Thanks, T-Dub.
Thank you.
I'll just show you something else. Just bear with me. Let's see. Bear with me. I love this. I love that. Isn't that magnificent?
Finishing. Like that. Wow.
And it just shows you've got a steamship there.
Yeah.
And they were known as liners because they could go in a straight line, hence liners. And as I mentioned before about the indigenous and the founding fathers, they were blown off course as they were on the way to Virginia, blown off course and ended up at Cape Cod. And the liners, fantastic. I love pictures like that, as you do. So, I've got to finish, boys. Thank you, DW. Hope to see you again. Hope to see you again. I hope you watched the parade, the Moscow parade. I did. It was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Good night, boys, and thank you, says George said. No, thank you for coming on, and everybody else. Everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you.
We won't. I don't care. I don't. Liverpool are playing one Monday night, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know what Monday. I don't know whether it's next week or the week. I don't know. It's pissing me off, to be honest.
And
we just move it to a Wednesday.
Yeah.
If that's okay with you.
Yeah. No. Fine, Frank. Whatever suits you.
But it just gets on my nerves. You know, like when there's a football match, why don't you just leave it for the weekend? Like a Saturday or a Sunday, like.
I know.
Oh, Johan. When's the next stream? No, it's not. It's Wednesday. It's tomorrow night. The next stream is tomorrow night, Johan. Got a stream tomorrow. Anyway. Gary the Rigby. Great show, guys. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Never forget this photograph, people. That lad
No.
carrying, as they thought, a wounded man. He wasn't. He was already dead. His mate. Within a few minutes, he was dead himself. That lad. Now they're the horrific and poignant, very poignant stories
Yeah.
that come out of wars.
Yeah.
And on that note, I've got to thank my great friend, international artist, great fella, love him to bits, Anthony Brown.
Thanks.
And I'll be seeing you next week. I'm sorry, Henry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to try and remove this. I don't know how to remove it. See, useless, mate. Oh, there we are. Yeah, so I'll see you next week, if that's okay.
That's fantastic, Frank. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And to these wonderful people, thank you so much. All you wonderful people out there, wonderful comments as usual.
Absolutely.
Really good comments. And I'll see some of you tomorrow night. Good night, Senor Frank and Anthony.
Oh. Thank you, Barry. Good night.
And now Johan. That's lovely. So listen, see some of you tomorrow night, I suppose. And then the next pod. Do you know what I might do? Would you be willing to do a history show this week?
Yeah. What are you thinking?
Say on Thursday.
Yeah.
Say on Thursday. I don't know whether to do Wednesday or Thursday, but I'll let Jason know. Is that okay with you?
That's fine with me, Frank. See how you go. See how we get on tomorrow. I'm good. I'm good for whatever.
I'll do another one because I really need to do some. I've got something there to do as well, historical, which is great. I tried to find. I've lost files. You know what I mentioned about the body in the sack.
Yeah.
Which was horrendous. It really was. Like that John Todd sort of thing, and the Burns and Devlin, and this body in the sack. Oh, shocking. You know, the injustice again.
Absolutely.
So I can't find it. So I'm going to do some history rather than, what we did tonight. So it'll be proper history. I think it'll be Thursday, I think it'll be Thursday. How's that?
That's fine with me, Frank. Yeah.
Okay.
With you.
So that's a day, Thursday.
Yeah.
And don't forget also, people, that we'll be doing the current affairs on the Friday. As people know now, it changes every day what's going on. It changes. So many stupid leaders in the West. It's pathetic. So, and the film and TV review Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And we'll see you all then. Johan. Thursday confirmed. Yes. But I've got a blog tomorrow night. Well, pod tomorrow night about some Liverpool stuff. And not the city, but football stuff. Oh, blimey. So I'll see you there Thursday, Anthony.
That's great. That's great, Frank. Thank you.
Thank you. Love to Laney. Okay.
Well, straight back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, people. Love you all. Thank you so much. Ci vediamo. Ciao, Bella.